G'day folks, welcome to an OCC Queensland Daily Weather Wrap today, the 8th of the 2nd, 2023. My name's Chris Nitzo. This update brought to you by our major sponsor, TownsvilleSheds.com. Check them out if you're in the market for a shed-safe, accredited shed. Alright, we've got a big trough system here in the Coral Sea linking up with a developing tropical cyclone. We can see the actual cyclone's developing just on the southern edge of all this deep convective cloud to the north. Just in there is our centre of circulation. That is approximately, let's pull the ruler out, and we can see that is approximately 350 to 400 k's just to the east-northeast of Willis Island this morning. That system is gradually going to be tracking to the south-southwest today, so pushing a little bit closer to the coastline. Nothing to worry about though. If you're on the Queensland coast, right now she's a messy old low. You can see the low pressure system located to the east-northeast of Willis, and you can see the trough system here, and it's messy because there's so much convective activity, so it hasn't been able to tighten all that convection around its core. You can see on the eastern side of the circulation is where we've got some very strong winds, so it's definitely a cyclone on the eastern side of the circulation, but remember, for the Bureau of Meteorology, we need to see that wrapping closer to the centre and around more than halfway around the centre, and we need to see those winds for an extended period of over 6 hours or more. So there's a few little loopholes it needs to jump through before it becomes a cyclone yet. The system is expected to, as I mentioned, dip to the south-southwest today, and then expecting to move in a southerly direction tomorrow, and then pushing away to the south-southeast the next day. We can see the ensemble tracks are very tightly packed. There is no threat whatsoever to the Queensland coastline. You can see how tightly packed. That's as good as I've ever seen the Coral Sea model members agreeing. So there's absolutely no crazy outliers that push the system out here or push the system out here. So that's a beautiful track forecast there. The expectation is that this is probably going to pose very little in terms of any surprise to us. The idea is that the system will gradually intensify as it pushes in the south-southeast direction through the Coral Sea, and you can see it does get quite close to Norfolk Island here in the areas off the off the Australian mainland, and then once again later on down the track we're watching for it to potentially bring quite a bit of rain to northern New Zealand. Right, let's have a look at the most dramatic effects of this system on the Queensland coast. Just going to be some wind gusts. Wind gusts getting up to about 35, 37, 38 knots at times around that coastal fringe. Maybe even up to the 40-knot range on the offshore islands here off the coast of Mackay and off the coast of the Whitsunday coastline. So that's probably about as bad as it's going to get across the region. You can see winds peaking in those offshore areas as we progress into tomorrow. So tomorrow's the peak winds. Peak area of winds is going to be that Whitsundays to Yeppoon coastline by the looks of that. And we're gradually going to shift those winds further southwards. Those strongest wind gusts getting up to 45 to 50 knots are expected to be offshore, further offshore off the islands at this stage. This model, once again, is probably our most western solution, and it's important that I show you what the worst case scenario is, so you're very aware of how bad things can get, and you can see they're not really going to get that bad. It's just a very windy day, just like we'd get in a normal southeasterly coming through, and you can see the actual winds that you're experiencing on the coast, they're not actually directly related to the circulation. They're actually related to what we call a pressure gradient squeezing force between the low pressure system here and a high pressure system to the southwest of it, and that's what's creating the squeeze effect of these winds, and that's why we're getting some pretty strong winds around the coast. Maximum winds are around that, so maximum wind gusts I should say, not sustained winds, maximum wind gusts around that 35 to 42 and 43 knot range. Once again, we're looking at offshore islands experiencing those maximum winds as opposed to coastal locations. Winds gradually decreasing from Friday morning and decreasing significantly by the time we get into Friday night into Saturday. For those of you that are bright-eyed, you would have noticed that the monsoon starts to kick back in towards the end of the week, and you'll start to see some increasing winds up in the Torres Strait and the northern parts of the Cape as the monsoon trough becomes reinvigorated. Right, today's the last big day of storms across Western Queensland. Enjoy them while you can. If you've missed out, hopefully today's your last chance, so hopefully you get one today. Widespread potential for showers and thunderstorms across Western Queensland with local moderate to heavy falls inside those. Flash flood risk is a primary threat of this convective activity across inland Queensland. North Queensland, there's a fairly sharp little boundary between dry air, which is trying to push right up into North Queensland, and moist air, which is holding it back. And that boundary looks to be established across the far northern inland. There's going to be some very heavy falls, although patchy and localised across this region. Also, it's not really the monsoon, it's just a weak sort of northwest flow here. I wouldn't call it monsoonal just yet, creating widespread showers up through here. A big trough system that links tropical cyclone, what should be tropical cyclone Gabby, is out here, which is resulting in heavy rainfall. At this stage, most of that heavy rain, if not all of that heavy rain, expected just off the coast. Outside of that, a few showers around the northeast and central eastern Queensland coastline. The rest of Queensland fairly dry and stable. On Thursday, as I mentioned, the last big day of big storms across western Queensland is today. Could be some very isolated convective activity tomorrow. Not expecting too much rain about that. Some showers around the Mackay coastline, the Whitsundays coastline in that fresh to strong southeasterly flow. Maybe some very isolated shower activity around the eastern seaboard. And oh yeah, look at that big heavy rain across that northern interior where that dry air comes in and whacks up against the moist air coming in from the Gulf into this region. So very interesting little development there across FNQ's inland areas. The potential for very heavy falls in those showers and thunderstorms in that region. Once again, extremely, and I do mean extremely patchy with regards to where those really heavy falls are going to be across that northern interior. And we see widespread shower and thunderstorm development across the Cape. And notice once again the Torres Strait firing up with quite a bit of shower and storm activity, which extends down into the northern Cape York Peninsula. Want to know more? Join us at join.ozcyclonechasers.com.au and we'll take you deep dive into these systems in a lot more detail and depth. And we also look further ahead at the next possible cyclone threat. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you tomorrow.